What you do is one thing, of course, how you do it is another thing. And then who you become by doing those two things answers a completely different question. And we don't necessarily slow down enough to ask ourselves that question. The feeling of not having access to something, even though it's right in front of you. I mean, right down to my name of my business, which people don't always realize is because I called it Queen Suite because I had to create a space for myself. I realized at one point in my first career that the C suite wasn't an impossibility, but it wasn't necessarily created for me. It couldn't hold me.
Hey y'all, welcome back to Beyond the Desk, another episode, and we have another special guest here with us, Miss Danielle Adams-Wiltshire. Say hello.
Hello. Good to see you both.
Good to
Good
see
to
you.
see you. It's always great to see you.
So Danielle is one of our fave facilitators. That's a long list, but she really is toward the top. Has worked with IAAP. Gosh, how many years now, Danielle?
Oh, we're totally putting you on the spot.
Right? I know. I think it's maybe like 7-ish.
That
7
feels
years.
right.
That does feel right. In a lot of different ways and capacities. And our work with Danielle just seems to keep growing exponentially for lots of reasons. But honestly, and I think I would love to start here with a question for you. If I can just kick it over to you for like an intro and wrap the answer to this question into your intro of yourself. But I know your heart is so deeply connected to administrative professionals, to the work that you do with them, to helping them grow and be their best selves. So, can you talk a little bit about what has drawn you to that work over the years?
Sure. For one, it is my personal and my professional mission to work with marginalized professionals and to democratize the accessibility of leadership development and coaching to people who otherwise wouldn't have those opportunities. So when I start there, it kind of makes a lot of sense that for me, I get to work with this community of people because they're my people. And you've heard me say this, like, these are my people because I can relate to it honestly on such a deep level. The the feeling of not having access to something, even though it's right in front of you. I mean, right down to my name of my business, which people don't always realize is because I called it Queen Suite because I had to create a space for myself. I realized at one point in my first career that the C suite wasn't an impossibility, but it wasn't necessarily created for me. It couldn't hold me. So I had to create a viable space for that. And that's what I help other people to do is really to create and to curate their space. Their, whatever that suite looks like for them, what does that space look like and how do they really begin to sit in it and own it?
Ooh,
Ah,
that is
great.
I wanna pull my teenagers lingo and just say like period. Yes, that is amazing.
Period.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, what's interesting about what you said, Danielle, is Rachel and I recorded another episode all about coaching and our personal experiences with coaching. And one of the things we talked about was accessibility and that a lot of administrative professionals may not even think of coaching as a development opportunity for themselves because it's so often reserved for executives or C-suite level professionals or people who are, formal titled leaders. That's who we tend to think of when we think of coaching.
Mhm.
So I do very much see the beautiful union between the work and your mission of your work and the administrative professional community. So it just was so natural when you came on board and the connection between the community and you, like, it's just so tangible because of that, because you make it so approachable and accessible. So um, I just wanted to shout out that we just talked about it on another episode, because that is such an important aspect of what you bring to the IAAP community and your personal individual mission, how that aligns so beautifully with IAAP's mission and with the need in the profession. I love that.
Yeah. I appreciate the opportunity even because I get to say the quiet part out loud for a lot of folks, right? So I get to say that for them so they don't have to, and then we get to learn on the other side of it.
Yes.
Love that. Yeah, that is good. Well, this is a perfect time, I think, to share one of the other reasons that we're having you as a guest on this podcast, beyond the fact that you're awesome, is that you are the facilitator for our Aspire Next Level conference. And so would love to take a few minutes and talk about kind of the conference in and of itself. I even hate to use the word conference because I think we're really intentional about making it so much more than that. So, can you paint a little bit for us about what your intention and what you bring as the facilitator and executive coach, if I may, of that conference to the administrative professionals who join us?
Absolutely. I'm going to try very hard not to gush, okay? Because
That's for sure.
I'm very proud of what we have created and co-created together around Aspire. Um, you're right. It's really not your average conference, so to speak, because it is the ultimate boutique professional development experience, right? Like it really is this experience that is intentionally designed to feel personal, immersive, and connected, not transactional. So, of course, there are these sessions and this rather incredible content that I have so lovingly created. And I also, take a lot of time to make sure that it's a curated experience for everyone who attends. So, what people don't tend to see, you all sometimes do because you see me slinking off, but people don't always see behind the scenes where after each day of conference, I go back to my room and I really reflect on the energy that was, emitted during that day of the conference, the conversations, the questions, sometimes the tears or the laughter, the unspoken themes. And I take those and I purposefully weave it into the very next day as part of the supporting fabric of what we're still learning and what we are cultivating. So the experience evolves in real time based on what people need, not just what was planned or what my mom wants to do for dinner that night. It's all
I mean, that's
happening.
really important too, though. The sustenance part is really important.
Gosh, and I love that. I love that so much because we say it every time, but it is not the same. Even though the content is very similar year to year, it is a completely different experience every year based on who is in the room and what they bring. So I love that you called that out because it really highlights and underlines how true that statement is. It can't be the same every year because they're not the same people in the room.
It really can't. Not to mention, it's not this kind of space where people are leaving with notes and handouts and screenshots. Like, all of that is great, but they're leaving with some pretty big shifts in their perspective, in their insight, the way that they see themselves, how they show up, and how they lead. That's the goal, is to leave with that big shift in the way that you lead. And you know what? If you leave with a new playlist, that's cool. If you know, you know. For my past, Aspire attendees, we tend to leave with a playlist too. But it's just you're getting everything. It's not just about the intention setting of it all or the motivation of it all. It's getting all of the parts and pieces and putting them together to play.
Yeah, and as I, think about our listeners and what I would want them to think or maybe understand about Aspire, there's two things that you talked about, Danielle, that I want to highlight. One is that boutique experience means exactly what you all are talking about. It's not a conference where you're going to come, sit, and soak, take notes, maybe grab some screenshots of some slides. There's a little bit of that woven in just because some people learn that way, but that's not the integral part of the experience. It is this learning lab, and it's very reliant and dependent on the energy and the people and the knowledge that's being shared in the spaces and in the room, which is an entirely different experience than I think most conferences bring. And the second thing is there's this level of depth to this content that I don't think is being offered to admins anywhere else. So if I'm, really thinking about what I want listeners to know about Aspire, it's that if you really do want an experience that you cannot find from any other trainer, from any other provider, if you're looking for something that is unique and deep and meaningful in terms of knowledge and development, this is it. This is the space that I would say you don't want to miss out on. Would you? I assume you're nodding. I assume you agree with that. Yes.
I mean, I do. It's basically a coaching intensive,
Yes.
and versus having, maybe an hour every couple of weeks. No, we're all in for 3 days, and it really is. It's a coaching intensive for people to really have something that they can take away, even if it's just one thing, but not just feeling good about the work that they do, but feeling good about what they're able to influence and what they're able to create.
So true. Another thing you mentioned, unique aspects, which I personally absolutely love this aspect of it. So, same, Danielle, I will try not to gush, but it is very unique in that we call them admin visionaries. And so they are people who have been trained, connected, uh, whatever other word that you want to throw in, Danielle, by Danielle, who are working administrative professionals and who are there to help maybe connect the dots. Sometimes leadership development in theory can feel a little ethereal and it can feel a little just beyond reach. Like I like the thought of that. But what does that look like for me? How do I actually implement that? And so the admin visionaries are there to help connect the dots for people who may be in that space, who may hear Danielle say something amazing and profound, and they're like, I don't quite get it. And that person is there to be like, okay, so this is how that showed up for me in my work. You're in this industry, so I can see this maybe showing up for you in this way. They are absolutely phenomenal individuals. And I think add a layer to this experience that is unmatched.
I'm so glad that you bring that up because it is actually one of my favorite parts of our experience, the conference, right? The admin visionaries, the amount of levity and insight that they bring to the room is unparalleled. It's unmatched, right? Because you don't see that in a lot of the different events that are held for professionals across industries. At this point, I see all kinds of events and I don't see a lot of that where you have that person who's like you in the room who can relate to those experiences and those challenges, right? And are able to breathe life into it and give it voice. I think that's so important. It really is a very important part of this particular event.
I love that.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I think we've hopefully sold everyone on Aspire. So hopefully you're getting yourself registered for that event. But thinking about the actual individual experience of admins, I'm kind of shifting a little bit into. I would love for our audience to get to hear from you. What some of those maybe even just impact moments that you've had with admins or reflecting on some of the experiences you've had. I'm thinking about the transition that we often see where admins come in very focused on tasks, very oriented around development, around improving skills and those task oriented things. And at some point in their journey, they begin to realize that that's not really the most meaningful work that they could be doing. They could be working on their leadership competencies. They could be working on how they are, who they are as a person, what they're bringing into the space versus what they're actually doing and the task orientation of it. So I just would love to hear directly from you because you've had so many incredible experiences with witnessing and facilitating some of that transition with our audience. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. It's funny because I wish I could name names. Like, if I could name drop at this point and say, okay, just name it, I would love to, because there are so many incredible success stories that I have been able to bear witness to over the years. However, in lieu of naming names, I'll say this: the common theme is that you see a lot of people blossom, right? And we've all done a version of that. We've all done a version of growing and blooming and sort of springing forth into something that feels more natural. And you have probably heard me say this before, but I'll say it again here, and that is that doing is work, being is effortless. And more often than not, I see administrative professionals struggling with low support, low confidence, and overall overwhelm. And that will tend to convince us otherwise, right? It convinces us that doing is doing, right? And being is not on the agenda for today. So we get a culture of people who are saying, look what I can do. Look what I can do. It becomes the rallying cry that distracts us from, look at who I am. Look at who I can be in service of this mission. Look at who I'm becoming. And it starts to strip the work away from the person. And the work itself becomes identity, right? And maybe I'm waxing a little too philosophic.
No, keep going.
See, like, that's what I see. I see it happening where, I've done it. I'm guilty myself of just assuming the work as my identity without allowing myself a space to be a whole, imperfect, incredible human, right? Who occasionally keeps her plants alive. Like, that's who I am. That's my story. But for those folks who are busy look at what I can do. They're saying, look at what I can do. They're focused on the doing. So therefore the being who they are, being a leader, being influential, being someone who can be a strategic partner in the room, all of those things feel really out of reach because that person's just not as in touch with who they are able to become if they embrace it. So when we start to see those parts as being effortless or easy or innate, then we're now resting our foundation on the part that is the most secure. It is the part where we can support ourselves from within, right? We are able to embrace our confidence and build it, but not just for ourselves, but for the sake of other people being able to see your confidence, right? Your belief in yourself, the faith that you have in your work. So that was a long answer for a very short question, but it's one of those, yeah, I go off. Yeah.
Well, I would love to tack on and kind of put you a little bit on the spot here, so I will apologize in advance. But do you have like one or two tips, maybe I should say, like some shift that someone can do right this minute, someone who hasn't experienced coaching or who may be identifying with themselves in what you're saying, one or two shifts that they're like, if you do this right now, it will start to move the dial a little bit even.
Sure. It starts with being really clear about what, how, and who, right? So, what you do is one thing, of course, how you do it is another thing. And then who you become by doing those two things answers a completely different question. And we don't necessarily slow down enough to ask ourselves that question. So, sure, this is what I do and this is how I do it. And this is who I am as a result of that, because it's in everything, whether you are a parent or a partner, if you're a dog mom or a cat parent, all of those, these are all of our titles, all of our roles. We're all of these things. And we don't necessarily take the time to look carefully at the type of work that we do and what part of ourselves is supporting through that. So that's the first step, is just looking at that. Who am I as a result of, creating this spreadsheet? You know, if it makes you the spreadsheet maven and you like that, I love it, right? If you're becoming the master go-to person for X, Y, or Z, then be that, right? And own it, embrace it if that's part of who you are working on becoming and being. And if it's not, make different choices.
Ooh, I love that. I don't think it's super terribly surprising to our longtime listeners that it comes back to introspection and really being able to inspect and reflect on who you are and how connecting with how you want to be, who you want to be in those moments, and having space and time to be able to discern if you accomplish that. Because a lot of times we get to the point where you're talking about setting the goal or even thinking about the who in the work, but then the next level or layer to that is like actually applying it and understanding, if you set an intention, did you meet it? Did you match it? Did you fall short? What happened in the space? And sometimes the work is what happens. Sometimes the work is what takes it over and doesn't allow us to be who we want to be in the moment. And to your point, it might be because you hate spreadsheets and 90% of your work that day is in Excel. Well, that might be contributing to the failure of showing up to, how you intended to show up. So there's even some space there to make a different choice.
Absolutely. I mean, for a lot of us, the goal feels like it is the obvious thing, right? Because we make goals and we get given goals by our bosses and all these things. And sometimes completing the goal will help you to understand that that wasn't who you wanted to become in the first place. And that's okay, right? If you were not setting out to become the spreadsheet maven, of all time, that's okay. So now that's information, right? That is information. So take that and then decide what you would like to do from that point forward. And that's all we're really doing. We just don't always realize it.
hmm
I love that so much. And I know we have to wrap up soon, but I think sometimes we can think of leadership competencies and leadership separate and apart from the work that we do, right? And it's like two different things and neither the twain shall cross and you do, but that's not it at all. Like leadership lives within the work that we do and how we do it and who we are as we do it. So I love beautiful tip. Thank you so much. And I think that so highlights aspire and next level. We call it next level for that reason. Like that's the level that we're talking about. So if you can join us in person in Chicago or virtually, we would love to see you. But if not, give us a call. Like we have other ways for you to access this, to be able to work with Danielle, to do all of these things. So this has been so uplifting today, Danielle. Thank you. It always is when we get to chat to you. But even if you know these things over and over, like just hearing them, it lands in a different way every day. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Thank you for also shouting out Chicago, one of my favorite cities. So, if people are still on the fence about coming, just reach out to me, ask me where to go to eat. I'll help.
Yeah, there's no shortage of places to eat great food in Chicago.
Motivation can look all kinds of ways.
Yes.
100%.
Lots of us are food motivated.
Yes. Yes. Well, thank you so very much again. It was so good to see you. And thank you, listeners, for joining us on this journey. And we hope we get to see you soon. Yeah.
See you next time.